Deep Threat Sports Network. Welcome back. It's me, Dave. Colin over here with a hat. Oh, and Brian's got a hat too. You know, Brian's the NIL guy from Mizzou. Big source for us here with the deep in the trenches, the underground information kind of deal. So we're happy to be back. I mean, this is a great weekend. We're going into the national championship on January 20th. This one's going to be a short one. Not going to be too long. We're going to talk about both semifinal games. We're going to talk about what the national championship could look like. And we're also going to, of course, like you guys know, one of our best segments is the Book It segment. Everybody loves it. People like to make money, and we like to risk it. Hey, we haven't been doing great through the playoffs, but overall, we have crushed it overall throughout the year. And I beg to differ if anybody's got as good of a record as we do. There might be one or two, but there ain't a lot. So stick with us. And then I'm going to shoot it over to Colin, see if he's got anything for us just to start us off. Like I said, it's going to be a shorter one, but it's going to be jam-packed, good information. It's going to be quality stuff.
No, just like Dave said, hey, we're here again, and we're getting back on a more consistent routine. Not really a ton. I say that. There's a ton to talk about, but we don't want to dive too much into the NIL stuff. We're going to give you guys some team reviews after the national championship's over. But right now, we're solely focusing on the playoffs. We told you guys that a while back, and we really want to give all the attention to the semifinal games this episode. We're going to review them, gave it some time to digest, really take in what happened, rewatch the games, had plenty of conversation amongst the three of us here, and we're really going to dive into that a little bit, what we saw, and kind of how it was a shock that some of the teams played so poorly. The quarterback play was so poorly in one of the games, and obviously, the Texas-Ohio State game was still a great game, but didn't necessarily go totally how we thought it was going to go, but a fantastic football game. And also, like Dave said, we're going to dive deep into the national championship preview and give you everything that we think what we see in that game, what these teams need to do from our analysis. And, Dave, that's all I really got, just kind of giving that quick preview here. And let's really dive into it now. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and talk about one of the games that, quite frankly, I thought was a pretty boring game. That was Notre Dame against Penn State. As we all know, Notre Dame got the dub there, 27-24. I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody caught the ball in that game for Penn State. I said maybe the ball boys.
Warren, that was it.
Catch anything? Yeah, exactly. And then it just was very boring. I mean, Riley Leonard, I was hoping he had a big game, but it was not the case. He was kind of and then he got hurt. Then he comes back, and then it made a difference. But I still don't think it was it was still okay, a little bit better, but nothing too crazy. So did you guys see anything exciting in the game? I mean, I know towards the fourth quarter it kind of got better and it kind of got a little bit more competitive towards the end. But I almost feel like at that point it was just, because time was running out and the score had gotten a little closer. But, I didn't think the actual gameplay was that exciting, what we've been used to this whole year, truthfully, because this year I think we've had some of the best football, from the beginning to the end of the season. It's just been solid throughout.
Yeah, no, Dave, I agree with you. The funniest thing you brought up was the fact that nobody caught the ball in Penn State. And that almost looms true. I mean, Drew Aller was 12 of 23 for 135 yards, and no receivers caught a pass in this football game. It is not shocking to me, and we're not diving into the transfer portal stuff on this episode, but it is not shocking to me that these receivers, it's a mass exodus there, it looks like, for the receiver core at Penn State. And I'm not surprised when they heard Drew Aller was coming back and playing again, and Bo Pribula was off to our Missouri Tigers. So just a really ugly football game. And Penn State had that early lead. I think it was 10-0 going into half. Or sorry, not going into half. They got a late field goal. Notre Dame did, but it was just a real ugly game. And when I was watching it, I was like, man, Notre Dame's defense is really letting Penn State run right down them, which is the same old story for Penn State. But I thought Notre Dame's defense was going to be able to hold that and limit that a little bit more. But it looked to me like that Notre Dame defense and Brian, help me out. What's their defensive coordinator's name? Al Golden, right? Isn't that Al
Yes,
Golden?
Correct.
It looked to me like Al Golden wasn't intimidated or scared going into that game, but it looked to me like he thought Penn State was going to come out slinging the rock around on him a little bit. And I think he was so afraid to let Tyler Warren do big things that he was kind of forgetting the fact that they have a two-headed monster at the running back with Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton, and they were running right down Notre Dame's throat. And it looked like Penn State didn't have to change anything. Hey, we're just going to keep handing the ball off, a few dinks and dunks to Tyler Warren here or there, and just to keep them off balance. But you see Riley Leonard take a shot. I think they checked him out for a concussion. He goes out of the game. and Steve Angeli comes into the football game. And at that moment, I was like, holy shit, Notre Dame's about to get walked. I was wrong. Angeli
Dude, that
comes
guy
in.
can absolutely sling it.
He went like 6 for 7 on that drive, dude, and went and got them points. He drove it right down the field on Penn State's defense, was something that Riley Leonard could not do the whole entire first half. And speaking of Riley Leonard, Bryant, Riley Leonard looked atrocious in the first half of this football game. I know that Penn State defense is mean, and I know Abdul Carter's incredible. And while I'm talking about Abdul Carter, I don't know what you guys saw. I know we were talking about this on the group text.
Oh, it
He
was
got
horrible.
held. He got held every single play, and I never saw it get called one time. I mean, the tackles had arms around the neck when he's coming around the edge, and they never got called. So I'm going to kick it over to Bryant, let him dive into it a little bit more so I don't just sit here and ramble. But a really ugly football game in the first half, and I'm sure Bryant's going to tell you about the second half and how it was different. I was not impressed with either team, either quarterback in that football game.
Yeah, it was definitely a tale of two halves, like you mentioned. I feel like the quarterback play kind of flipped in the halves from first to second. I thought Drew Aller was actually okay in the first half and kind of dictated that offense like he has done all season. But Riley Leonard, after coming back after getting knocked out of the game there in the second quarter, came back in the second half and looked like a completely different person. Yeah, he wasn't throwing the ball as well as you'd like. Still had the interception there towards the end of the game. Still was not, getting out effectively like he should be at the quarterback position, especially this late in the season. But, he stayed water, was able to make some plays with those legs. And I want to give a shout out to two players I think that were the key factors in Notre Dame winning this game. Jaden Greathouse came out of nowhere, like you always seem to see when it comes to these championship games and these playoff games. It's always a random person. It seems like, kind of a third string guy that comes and shows out when they needed most. And honestly, I thought Aeneas Williams played great in that third and fourth quarter of this football game. Jeremiah Love obviously was banged up with his knee issue. He played pretty well, had that crazy run for the touchdown there in the fourth quarter. But Aeneas Williams had a long catch down the sideline. He had like 4 plays in one drive that almost basically did it all himself. So credit to those two guys and credit to Riley Leonard for kind of keep getting his composure back in the second half and, taking Notre Dame to the win here.
Yeah, and honestly for me too, like this is one of those games where we talked about when you go into it, James Franklin and Marcus Freeman, who was really going to be the coach to step up. And there for a while, I felt like it was for grabs. Like I felt they were both calling a pretty conservative game, pretty nervous. You talked about Jeremiah Love, man. I cannot give enough credit to that guy. Playing extremely banged up, showed all the heart in the world, and he was just biting down on the mouthpiece and going and getting it for his football team. Talked about Aeneas Williams, absolutely. Fantastic game for him, too. Shout out to 2 guys from the great state of Missouri here at the running back position for Notre Dame, one from Hannibal, one from St. Louis. Fantastic stuff, man. I really enjoyed seeing that. We talked, too, about how in these big games, you got to have a guy step up that you don't necessarily see step up all the time, or have a guy show up that you weren't really expecting it to happen from. And Jaden Greathouse from Notre Dame, receiver there, 7 catches, 105 yards and a touchdown. Fantastic stuff, man. I mean, that is a guy that really stepped up in that moment, took a little bit of pressure off of Leonard. And without his performance, I'll be honest, they probably wouldn't have won that football game, right? I mean, this was crazy stuff. And then you see late in this football game, Notre Dame punts, Penn State gets the ball back. I think they had 2, maybe 3 timeouts and not very good field position. And they come out and run the ball on that first down, get, 10, 15 yards on it, get the first down. And then all of a sudden, Drew Aller, they drop him back. He's under pressure and just throws back across the field, across his body. What are we doing in that moment? I understand you're under pressure. I understand it's a big situation. And obviously, I'm not in that moment. I'm not saying I could do it any better at that time. But I feel like in my head, I would have known what was at stake. Let me just throw this shit away. Dude, if you get a grounding, that's not great, but it's not the worst case scenario that could happen in that moment. You go to overtime, you play it out in overtime, and I feel like in overtime, Penn State probably could have won that football game.
Colin,
Drew Aller's go ahead, Dave. Let me finish this one thing because I was so high on Drew Aller early on in our shows and the season. Fellas, he's not it. He's got a long way to go.
That's why he's back, not going to the draft.
He's just got a long way to go. I'm not trying to sound like a dick about it. I mean, he's just nothing he showed me in that big moment or that big game, he missed so many receivers. It was just
I
not bad.
just go ahead.
Do we
I
think?
just remember us three texting about this, and we were like,
Hmm.
I cannot believe this was the quarterback playing a semifinal football game from either team.
Well, to your point, Colin, I got two questions for us, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you both questions at once, so you can kind of process both of them at once. One, because Notre Dame's the national championship, do we still think they're a national championship team, or did they just have an easier route to get to this point? And two, with Drew Aller, do you think he kind of knew that, and which is why he decided to come back? Like maybe he kind of, because they got people that can ask around and be like, hey, like, what do where they ask NFL executives, hey, what do you guys think about Drew Aller? And maybe everyone was like, listen, we're not really that interested in him. And maybe he was like, hey, maybe I should just come back to Penn State and have another year, maybe to get better, and then increase my draft stock because I feel like players, especially nowadays, ideally, whenever you can be a good draft pick if you're, at a high level team like Penn State, you want to be a first or second rounder. And if you're not, like, you might just hang on, and wait to be a first rounder or maybe a late, early second.
I think for me, to answer your second question first, my Drew Aller takeaway is when you look at him, he's got the build. He's a big kid. I mean, he's got the intangibles. He's got a cannon for an arm. So I mean, if somebody could really get a hold of him and hone it in, and that's why I was so high on Penn State early on. That's why I was so high on the Drew Aller experience again this year, is because I thought Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator at Penn State, would really unlock him and unleash him. So I just don't think he has the NFL smarts, I guess you could say right now. I don't think he processes and reads defenses very fast yet. And when he's under a little bit of pressure, you could tell he gets some happy feet going on, doesn't set his feet, throws off balance, makes some bad throws, makes some bad reads. And I think what covered that up for so long is they didn't play defenses like Notre Dame all season long. He had the Tyler Warren security blanket, and he always felt like, hey, wherever Tyler Warren's at, he's my guy. I'm looking at him first. If there's any window I have, I'm going to him. And you did see earlier on in that football game, there were some tight window throws to some tight ends because no receivers caught a pass, but there were some tight windows, and Drew Aller can get plenty of zip on the football and get it in there and thread the needle. And he did that every once in a while. But when it comes to looking off some coverage and then coming back to where you need to go and throwing a deep ball, it's not necessarily there right now. And I also do think his receiving core wasn't the best. And Notre Dame's coverage defense on the secondary is very good. There is a reason they're up there in takeaways. They are very good. So there's a lot that plays into that. But in those big moments, when you lean on your quarterback so heavy, he has to play better. Because Notre Dame came out and slammed the door. Al Golden came out of halftime and said, listen, their run game is no longer going to be in effect. We are going to stack the box, and we are going to make Drew Aller beat us in the second half of this football game. Well coached by Al Golden and Notre Dame, because they slammed the door, and they didn't allow Drew Aller to throw them into a victory.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think Drew Aller really was coming back the whole time until the first and second round. He started to get a little buzz because he played decently well in those games, and has all the intangibles like Colin spoke about. But I definitely agree with him coming back. I think it's the right decision. I think he has a lot more to work on and hone to be able to get to being a capable NFL quarterback, because he's not very mobile at all. I mean, he's decent, but he's not like their backup Bo Perbula, which is the guy coming to Mizzou, was way more mobile than him. But Drew Aller is a pocket passer, and he needs to be able to hone in and read defenses better. So I think, like I mentioned, I don't think he was coming back all along until these last few weeks where they're winning games in big time moments, and that got him a little bit of buzz. But no, yeah, I think it's the right decision for him to come back. Absolutely. As far as Penn State getting here, I do think they had a little bit of an easier schedule coming to this point, or Notre Dame, I'm sorry. But these games they've all been pretty evenly matched. There's been some blowouts, but I mean every game's tough in this 12-team playoff. So, I think you can argue both sides.
Yeah, that's, to me, Dave, I hear you, and I've asked myself that question. But I think that's really neither here nor there, because like Bryant said, it's a playoff game. It's a playoff atmosphere. You're going to get every team's best. Like, they are going to come out and give it everything they have. Nothing left to hold back, nothing left to hide. It's Yeah, it's really hard to put it on that, right? I mean, Penn State's defense is spectacular. So I mean, they rode that defense and they rode Tyler Warren all the way until they couldn't no more. And a shout out to that Penn State defense still. I mean, I think they played their ass off. I think they played a very good football game. And I was still impressed with what they had, especially because, like I said earlier, Abdul Carter got held every single play and they still kept getting after it. So for that, I can't, that's neither here nor there for me, really. But like what Bryant said with the Drew Aller thing again, he is a pocket passing quarterback. He can move. I mean, he can get out, and if there's nothing, he can get up and get you 10 yards on a first down. But like Brian said, I mean, he's not mobile. No team comes in scheming up a QB spy and says, "Hey, keep Drew Aller. Don't let him get loose." That's not what they do. So when it comes to that, you have to be able to be lethal in the pocket and complete passes, consistent basis, and he cannot do that right now. Also, if he was a fifth or sixth round quarterback, I think he just guess. I'm no NFL draft expert, just throwing this out there. And you see quarterbacks go all the time and go early and go way before they should. But I think he was probably a fourth or fifth round type draft pick quarterback. And let's be honest, with NIL fellas, he's probably getting paid more at Penn State than what he would have
For
in the fourth,
sure.
fifth round.
And those guys don't work out in the league. Everybody's all hot and bothered by the low quarterback picks because of what Brock Purdy's doing in San Francisco. But, he's a diamond in the rough. That shit does not happen.
No, it happens way less than it does happen. I mean, I'm just going to blow something out of my ass here. I'd say there's at least 8 quarterbacks drafted every year, right? And there's only so many teams these guys can play on, and how many more don't work than how many do work. So,
I mean, you look at this past rookie class, you got Spencer Rattler, right? He was really, pretty good quarterback in college. Went in the 5th round of the Saints and has been absolutely trash.
And I would say, outside of having just pure arm talent, I would say Spencer Rattler could read a defense and was way more mobile than Drew Aller was.
Yeah. I saw a comparison for Drew Aller and it made me laugh because it's pretty spot on. And I can't remember who it was, but it was on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. And it was like, Drew Aller is literally Brock Osweiler. Do you remember him?
Yeah, dude, huge, just
tall,
a big ass quarterback.
Sling the ball, was decent, but was couldn't win big games. And when he got to the league, he was bad.
And can't
so
read a defense.
Hopefully, yeah, he could not read defense. So hopefully that does not happen for Drew and after this next season in 2025 and his future and possibly in the NFL. But I thought that was a good comparison and made me laugh.
It is. And for Drew Aller coming into the next season, they've got 2 really good tight ends coming back. Not being named Tyler Warren, but you saw tight end after tight end for Penn State all season long show up. They also returned Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. That's huge. So, I mean, there's pieces there. He's just going to need a better receiving core, and they're going to really have to let him throw the ball around next season. So,
hey, absolutely. Listen, the way things are going, I to your point, Colin, I think NIL was a big reason too. Because let's look at Carson Beck. That didn't turn out too bad for him. 10. Hey, last I looked, it was a total of $10 million in NIL deals to go to Miami. So, I mean, you'd have to be a first rounder for it to make sense to stay.
Listen,
to go.
I hear you. Don't get me started on this Carson Beck conversation. We're gonna have to save that for its own episode.
Let's say that for after. Let's say that for after the season.
Hey,
because I got a lot to say about that.
I got some words for that one too.
Hey,
I got some other ones I want to talk about, so we'll save that.
We'll do player reviews towards the end of once the season ends. Do some reviews. So we can do a couple people that did really great and a couple people that did not do so great.
There we go.
Absolutely. I was going to say it in the outro of our podcast here, but yeah, we're after the national championship, we're really going to dive deep into the transfer portal, some NIL conversations, and I'm looking extremely forward to those, honestly, because we could go on for hours about everything going on there.
Yeah, you can only talk so much about a particular game and what happened or what you think is going to happen in the next week's game. So I'm definitely excited for those episodes because, that's where these teams we're talking about now are truly built is
absolutely
from mid-January to after spring ball.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, that kind of wraps up Notre Dame Penn State. It was a pretty slow game, but on the other hand, we had Ohio State and Texas. That was the other semifinal game we had. Ohio State got the dub 28-14. I mean, I think we all kind of thought this game was not going to be as close as it ended up being. I mean, Texas defense did a pretty good job with Ohio State's wide receivers. I mean, they kind of kept them in check for the most part of the whole game. I mean, they didn't have anything too explosive. And again, Quinn Ewers is not not impressive, but has he declared?
Hey, he declared for the draft as of today.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we talked at length. We were trying to talk ourselves out of that Ohio State big spread. We talked at length that Texas defense, they had the secondary to limit those Ohio State receivers, and they did just that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This game, I thought Ohio State was going to cut, 2-touchdown win for and a comfortable, not this close, because I think the score doesn't show how close this game really was.
No, not at all.
I think this game
was 3 yards from tying it.
Yeah.
So,
Texas was within the 5-yard line. I mean, they were down 7, but it would have been a tie game if they scored rather than strip sack by Sawyer.
I don't want to jump to the very end of that game right there, but since we're on that topic.
Perfect. Let's go.
Since we're on the topic of the very end of that game and how they were a yard away at one point, really. I'm pretty sure. Why somebody I blew up in our group text about this right after it happened. Somebody explain to me, please, why you're going to run a pitch play from the 1 out of shotgun. What are you doing? What I understand you want to catch them off balance and you want to get to the boundary and you want to stretch it out and maybe give your guy with some speed a chance to get to the edge of the end zone. But that risk of what happened in that moment, Caleb Downs made a fantastic play and blew it up and shot the gap and read it like a book. What is the play call, Sarkisian? Like, you were so much smarter and better than that. You pound the rock right there with your offensive line who got you this far 4 straight times from the 1-yard line, and you just keep pounding it right there. You don't let your red zone offense is so damn bad. You don't let anybody else screw this up. You pound the rock, you tush push it, you QB sneak it, you run it with the running back, whatever. Your offensive line is the strength of your offense. Lean on them in that moment. I know Ohio State's defense is ferocious, but you are on the 1-yard line. You don't run out of gun. You don't pitch it from the gun. You don't do that shit. I can never prove this, but I'm very confident if they would have ran the ball 4 times from the 1-yard line right there, they would have got in on one of them. Or earlier in the game, it was a 4th down, and they throw Arch Manning in, and he mixes it up, and Arch Manning gets the first down. Why not sprinkle Arch in right there on the 1-yard line? He's bigger than Quinn Ewers. He's like 230 or something. Lean on him. Let him find the end zone on the QB sneak. It's just a terrible play call. Yeah, it cost them a chance at the national championship.
Yeah, I think Sarkisian was a little cute. Yeah, I get it's the playbook. You're supposed to open up. You're in a playoff game. You're supposed to, throw everything, caution to the wind and everything, and try to win the game. But he got too cute. That was the biggest play that everybody's going to remember is why did you run that? Like you mentioned, I get what they were doing, but why go away from what was working that entire drive and pretty much the whole game for them straight up the middle? But throughout the whole game, he was calling some very gimmicky plays that I felt like were just not. They were either, bad looks or kind of killing the momentum that Texas had, if at all. So I think the blame is, not solely on him, but I think a lot of it is on him for Texas' performance in this game because their defense did absolutely everything that they could have possibly done. I mean, Jeremiah Smith only had 3 yards.
Outside of Michigan, this was the best defensive performance anybody could have ever asked for against this Ohio State offense.
If you would told me Jeremiah Smith had 3 receiving yards, I would have laughed in your face. So
without a doubt,
Quinn Ewers and Coach Sarkisian and some of this play calling was definitely with Achilles' heel for them in this game.
Well, Brian, you can make this. We're trying to make a case for I understand it. There's a case to be made for you run the pitch play from the 1 out of the gun. If it's a Saturday in October, and you're playing.
Yes. And you're playing Middle Tennessee State.
Or even Mississippi State. But when you're playing for all of it on the line, even if this was in the first quarter, maybe, but you're playing, it's all on the line in this moment. You're not doing that shit. This is a chance to go to the national championship. You're not doing that. Ever.
I absolutely agree. That's why I said I think he got too cute and he outthought himself.
He did, without a doubt. He overthought this. And trying to back it up a little bit, talk more about the game, how we got to that moment. And Dave touched on this. This was a much closer game than any of us expected it to be. That Texas defense, we talked about it at length, our preview episode last week, how they could really show up and show out, and they did. They did. Like if there was a unit that I was most impressed with this whole entire playoff structure through all the games, through the 12-team format, I would go back even next week probably, unless one of these units from these two teams in the national championship is spectacular. I'm going to come back and tell you guys that Texas performance on the defensive side of the ball in the semifinal game against Ohio State was the best I saw any unit from any team perform throughout the whole entire playoffs. It was truly a championship caliber performance, well coached, well thought out, well game planned. They kept Ohio State's receivers in front of them the whole entire game, never let them get behind them. And they just said, look, we know you have two good running backs, but we're going to make you earn every single yard all game long running the football. And Texas's linebackers, we talked about this last week, Texas's linebackers are so fast. They can get boundary to boundary in a snap of a finger. They kept plays in front of them all night. I was so impressed with them. To be honest, I wasn't real impressed with Will Howard. Yeah, he did enough. He did exactly what he needed to do to win a football game. So credit to Chip Kelly for never trying to do too much and just letting the game kind of unfold as it was, and it was working. And, man, also talking about that play with the pitch and what it really cost them, Jack Sawyer, biggest play of the playoffs. That was Quinn Ewers' old roommate at Ohio State when Quinn Ewers was there. He gets around. He strips him. That. Yeah, he strips him and takes the ball to the house. His interview was awesome. I've never been a Jack Sawyer fan, really, until I heard his interview. And he was like, man, I just kept telling myself I can't fall down like Will did, and I blacked out. That shit to me is awesome. You could tell how much it really meant to him. And, yeah, man, it was a fantastic performance. Wasn't real impressed with either offense, but I was very impressed with both teams' defenses.
I want to give one more thing on this game. I thought that was a big point, and I think credit's due in this spot here. Ohio State's running backs, Judkins and Travion Henderson, that bomb touchdown that Henderson had there late in the second quarter, I think that was, probably the game changer, honestly. Yep. Got momentum back on Ohio State's side. And then Judkins had 2 touchdowns as well. Like you mentioned, Chip Kelly, credit to him for I think they were going to pass the ball a lot in this game, but he saw what Texas was doing and was able to make the adjustments and lean on these 2 running backs that are very, very good. And they paid off, and they played probably both of them played their best game of the season in this game. So credit to them and credit to Chip Kelly. Ohio State would not be here, not be in the championship game without those 2 guys.
Absolutely. And one thing we're kind of forgetting too is, you see Isaiah Bond comes into this game still banged up, and gets dinged again a little bit. Matthew Golden gets dinged for a little bit. So it really came down to freshman Ryan Wingo out of St. Louis. And only thing I saw Texas consistently have working was the check down to Jaden Blue. Like, that was one of the only things that I consistently saw. And Quinn Ewers looked for it so much, so fast, so frequent, that's what I felt like all he was comfortable doing. Like, he wasn't comfortable sitting in that pocket against this Ohio State front seven who was flat getting after him. It's a shame because, and I wasn't really pulling for either team, to be here honest. I'm not a fan of either team. But what for me was a shame is that game should have went to overtime, and we should be talking about something totally different. It's just one of those moments where I just feel like there could have been a different outcome. Kind of like the Penn State Notre Dame game. Drew Allar doesn't roll across his body and throw that pick. It could have been a different outcome. And you go back to such minor details as to how that happened. And Brian, you just talked about it. Travion Henderson snapping that big one off was 100% the momentum shifter. Like, that game was kind of in a lull at that moment. You're like, all right, this game is up for grabs. The ball is right here. Somebody just got to reach out and grab this shit and take it over. And big-time players make big-time plays, and Henderson gets it out. Credit to him.
Well, I mean, I've never been the type of person to like really be into the like defense win championships, but in this playoffs, we're kind of looking like the defense is kind of what's carrying all of these teams, all 4 of these teams, because none of these offenses have been, that impressive, to be honest. We haven't seen any ridiculous, offensive play. So, hey, maybe defense does win championships. We're about to find out. because
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State is going to play Notre Dame in the national championship. Who would have thought Ohio State, we could probably see it, but Notre Dame, I don't think anybody saw them being in the national championship at the beginning of the year.
I think coming into the season, Bryant, correct me if I'm wrong, Ohio State was the betting favorite, I think, to win the national championship.
Yeah, they were like, I think they were somewhere between plus 500 and 1,000.
They were tied with Georgia at one point. I think it
Something
got
like
pretty
that.
I
It
think it
might have
got
been
real
lower.
low.
It might have
I
been
think
like
it got down to
300.
like plus 300 there for a while
Yeah.
with Georgia.
Yep.
You know, and Dave, you are right. This is a game where defense is going to win championships, but also I think Ohio State's offense could still bust it out. I think like that's what I keep telling myself. And the biggest thing for me on coming into this football game, a couple things that I think both teams need to do. Starting with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, if I'm them, I'm slowing it down on offense a ton. I'm limiting Ohio State's possessions. With that being said, though, contrary to that is if Ohio State is scoring points on your defense, obviously pick up the pace. Don't wait too long and let it get too far gone. But you don't want Ohio State to have so many possessions in the first half, have so many chances, because the more chances they have, the better and the more likely it is that Chip Kelly's going to figure a defense out and pick them apart at some point. As long as Will Howard can make the plays. The Notre Dame secondary needs to take a page out of Michigan's book and Texas's book. They just need to go watch those two football games. That's all they need to do. They need to realize, keep the receivers in front of you. Do not let them get behind you like both those teams did against Ohio State, where it gave Ohio State trouble, gave Will Howard trouble. They need to keep the plays in front of them. The defense needs to generate some pressure on Will Howard. Will Howard is very uncomfortable under pressure. I don't care if the stats show he's great. I'm not off the top of my head positive if they show that he's great. I don't think they are. But you can tell Will Howard is not comfortable when they're flat getting after him. Generate pressure early in this football game. Establish that your front seven is going to make it hard for Will Howard to make plays. But also, you can't overstack the box like you get against Penn State, because the receivers on Ohio State are much better than what than what Penn State was willing out against Notre Dame's defense. So it's really hard to coach a game against this Ohio State offense, but mimic, copy, and paste everything Texas and Michigan did against them. On the flip side of this, if you're Ohio State, you're Ryan Day, you're Chip Kelly, you need to go into this game and be like, okay, we're not going to get too cute. We're not going to overthink this. We're going to run our offense. Don't start running the ball on first and second downs like you did against Michigan and really trying to strong arm them and try to beat them where they're the strongest. Go out there and trust Will Howard. Let him make plays. Take some deep shots. Throw some screens. Let your playmakers make plays. This Notre Dame's linebacking core, they're great, but they're nowhere near as fast as what Texas had in the linebacking core. Notre Dame can't go boundary to boundary with Ohio State's receivers like I'm getting them all confused. Like Texas's linebackers could, because Texas's linebackers work sideline to sideline, east and west, as well as anybody in the country. Notre Dame could not do that as well. I think if I'm Ohio State, I'm going to spread it out a lot. I'm going to make this Notre Dame defense. They love running man coverage, and I know Brian's going to dive into that a little bit more. I know this Notre Dame defense loves running man coverage, and if they're going to try to run man coverage matchup for matchup against my receivers across the board, hey, best of luck to you. And if you're doing a fine job, I'm going to run the shit out of Will Howard out of the 5-wide formation. I'm going to make your defense spread out, get weak in the middle, and I'm going to run Will Howard. You have nothing left to hide anymore. You have nothing to hold back. Run Will Howard into the dirt in this football game if you have to. You don't have to worry about injuries no more. You don't play next week. You play this football game, and that is it. Give him some time to recover if he has to. Run the shit out of him. Notre Dame is going to run the shit out of Riley Leonard. I can promise you that's going to happen. Bryant, give your diagnosis, and I'll circle back.
I pretty much got three keys to this game. I feel like they kind of tell the story. First one I'm going to start with is pass rush for both teams. Colin kind of mentioned Notre Dame and trying to get Will Howard hurried. That's, I think, your key to winning the game from that standpoint. But Ohio State is banged up. I think both of these defensive ends on both teams have to be licking their chops. Notre Dame's like 90th in the country in pass blocking. So Jack Sawyer and Tuli Molowow, I probably butchered Tuli Molowow. I probably butchered that guy's last name, but they got to be licking their chops in this game. If they can get home and get to the pass rush and make Riley Leonard pass the ball and or sack him, I think it's going to be a major havoc for that Notre Dame offense. But on the flip side, that Notre Dame, they have really good pass rushers as well. So, and like I mentioned, Ohio State's offensive line is also banged up. I think they're on a second, third string, two or three different positions there. So that's the first key. I think so whichever offensive line can play better, I think has a better chance of winning this game. Secondly, I'm going to stick with Ohio State's defense. If they can stop the run and make Ryan Leonard pass the ball and not check it down and actually pass it downfield, I think it's going to bode well for them. But Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Aeneas Williams, those guys have all been playing very, very well. So that's going to be a tough thing for Ohio State to do. Definitely think they're capable. I know also Ryan Leonard in this game might have some opportunities on the outside because the Ohio State cornerbacks, are not as highly touted as they typically are. So, even if Ohio State does kind of stop the run and load the box a little bit, Ryan Leonard may have some success passing the ball if he can play better than he did. But I think that's another key we'll have to watch in this game. And thirdly, Colin kind of alluded to it, but Ohio State in their last game against Texas ran primarily zone coverage, which Will Howard was not able to dissect very well. Like I mentioned, Jeremiah Smith only had 3 yards kept receiving, and Nick Buka, did not. He played pretty well, but not nothing crazy, nothing stat popping. But Notre Dame runs almost entirely man coverage. They're one of the best teams in the country in defense running in man. So I'm intrigued to see how they either shift their defensive style in this game to try to mimic what Texas did, or if they try to play to their strength, which I think they'll likely do, and try to man up and play ball with these receivers. That's going to be the most intriguing matchup, I think, in this game is Ohio State's receivers versus Notre Dame's corners, linebackers, and safeties. If I'm Notre Dame, I'm sticking with what I'm good at. I'm pressing the shit out of these guys, and I'm making them beat me, which they're definitely capable of doing. But, this is the national championship. It's time to strap it up and go and see who's better.
Here's my thing. Does Al Golden really go into his team meetings thinking that his secondary can truly slow down Ohio State receivers across the board? Because you saw last game, Carnell Tate, their third receiver on the team for Ohio State, step up and get open. Texas's secondary is so much better to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think to me then Notre Dame's is. Like I don't think. I'm trying to think. They had. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it. Notre Dame's best cornerback coming into the season was absolute stud, but he's hurt and he's out, and he's been out for a while now. If they had him, maybe, but without him, and it's just too much for Xavier Watts in this secondary for Notre Dame.
It's just intriguing. It's just intriguing because it's totally different scheme and style than Texas ran. So I'm anxious to see how they're going to approach this football game from that standpoint.
It is, but I don't. And to your point, I don't necessarily think Notre Dame drops back in just this umbrella coverage or cover 4 deep, whatever. I don't think they drop back into any of that in this football game because they can't. Because then Ohio State receivers are so skilled they're going to pick you apart underneath. Like that is what makes it so difficult for them. Is you have to have long, fast, quick linebackers, long, fast, quick cornerbacks, safeties, all the above to really slow them down. You brought up something else that was interesting to me too, though, is Ohio State's cornerbacks I don't think are great, but I think Burke and Igbinosun are good enough where they can for sure match up just fine with Notre Dame's receivers because no receiver from Notre Dame scares me. Like we talked earlier about how Jaden Greathouse was the leading receiver for them in the semifinal game. That guy is nothing compared to what Ohio State has seen this season in like an Evan Stewart, a Tez Johnson. I mean, the list goes on. This is probably like the 4th or 5th without really looking at it and diving into it. This is probably really the 4th or 5th best receiving core that Ohio State's faced this season with their secondary, right? I mean, there's plenty of receivers and receiving cores they've faced that have been much better than what Notre Dame's wheeling out there. So for me, it's like all Riley Leonard, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's Riley Leonard, and I think if Ohio State's defense shows up, and even if they don't play an A+ game, I think they win this game because I think they're going to get their points on offense. If they could stop the run that Notre Dame has been leaning on this whole playoff and majority of the season, I think he can mail it in.
Yeah,
Because I don't think Riley Leonard's going to throw for 350 yards and win you this game.
Well,
I don't think he's capable of throwing. Period. Like I
well,
don't think
I
he's
don't think
physically capable.
I don't think he has to be though. He doesn't have to be that guy on this Notre Dame team. I think if he can run the ball well, they play smart. Don't make any crazy throws. Just easy slants. Just move the chain. Just keep moving the chains. Don't like I don't think Riley Leonard should throw anything past 25 yards.
I don't think he can, dude. I'm not
Mhm.
being I'm not being. I don't think he can. If he has to, he can't. And this game is if that's what he has to do, and I know you're saying that's not what he is, and that's not what they're asking him to do, and I agree with you, Dave. That's why they're here in this moment. But if the game is unfolding and it's 14-0 quick, it's 17-0 quick, and they got to get up on their horse and get it going, they can't. Like they can't. Like I'm here to tell you, they cannot do that. Period. They don't have the guys. They don't have the skill players. Jim Leonard's defense on Ohio State has way more talent, position for position, than what Notre Dame's offense has position for position. Like they physically cannot. That's why earlier I was saying they have to limit the shit out of Ohio State's possessions and just pray to God. Thank God they're a private Catholic school. They got to go in all week long to the chapel and pray all week that this defense can slow down this Ohio State. That's the only chance they have is if they hold Ohio State under 20 points.
So Notre Dame just got to keep the ball. They just got to keep the rock and just.
If I'm Notre Dame, my perfect game plan is similar to how Georgia Tech almost beat Georgia with running it up the middle to the outside, and then I'm also QB powering it up the middle with my quarterback as much as possible. I think that's what they're going to have to do in order to have some sort of success.
For me, I'm just playing devil's advocate, and I'm just pushing back on this. Like that Jim Leonard knows that's what they're going to do, right? Like this is all Ohio State's preparing for. Like that's also why I tell myself on the flip side of this, like I know I'm kind of all over the place, but like this is a really hard game for Notre Dame on both sides because now Jim Leonard knows that what Notre Dame wants to do, knows that Riley Leonard's going to get 30 rushes in this football game. Like he is fully prepared for that. So like maybe all like the last 10 days of this Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman team work on, we are going to run screens. We're going to run 3-yard slants. And like Dave was kind of talking about it, just on third down, just move the damn chains. Just keep the ball. Take the air. Give Ohio State like 5 possessions max, 4 possessions somehow in the first half of this football game. Run it on first and second down or throw some screens and some slants, and now the clock just keeps ticking. High percentage throws. Don't ever let the clock stop. Third down, it's 3rd and 4, hopefully for you. And just on a prayer, hope Riley Leonard finds a hole or Jeremiah Love finds a hole and get the first down. And then burn 3 more minutes on those next 3 downs. And then they get the first. Like that is the only chance in hell I think they have in this football game. And I don't think it happens, to be honest with you. But I'm just saying that's the only chance they do have. Let me ask you guys this. Because I think Ohio State puts 7, 8 in the box comfortably, very comfortably in this football game. Who on Notre Dame can beat Ohio State's defense anywhere across the board? I'm not, and forget about Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard and Aeneas Williams for a second. Who on that offense can beat them? Jaden Greathouse probably doesn't do it again, right?
No.
Faison probably doesn't do it here. And I'm forgetting the other one. I know they have a good tight end in Mitch Evans. I think his name's Mitchell Evans, right? We have so many names coming at us right now. Mitchell Evans is good, but this is just not a good matchup for them at all, anywhere.
No. And like I said, like you mentioned, Mitchell Evans is probably the answer to that. But, they're going to be so keyed in on stopping any possible running attack that I don't know. It's so tough. He's going to have to. Somebody's going to step up because they're not going to be able to run the ball all game like they have been.
It's just not going to work. It's just not going to. I don't care how good of a rushing attack you are. It's not going to work in a national championship game against a great rushing defense. It's just not.
Yep.
And I was saying earlier that I don't think Riley Leonard can complete passes deep down the field, like at a very high percentage at all. One, because like I just said, they don't have the receivers to do that. But if if Ohio State's walking down every play, and I think they will, I think they're going to walk safeties. I think they're going to press coverage. I think they're going to be all up on them. If one happens to turn loose and deep, those are the moments where Riley Leonard cannot miss. If Greathouse gets loose deep behind the coverage, you have to complete it. Like, you legitimately have to, because you're not going to get many chances to do that. And maybe big plays is where they can find their honey in this football game. But I just don't think it happens. I'm just trying to find any way while we're talking right here how I think it could happen. I don't.
I think
I
I think we gave it all as possibly could from Notre Dame's side. Obviously, they got to play very good on defense, and I think Notre Dame has to pass the ball in this game to have a chance of winning. I think that's it. Comes down to Ryan Leonard, and somebody needs to catch some passes, whether it's some of the running backs out of the backfield, screen plays, kind of outside passing plays from them, up the middle passing plays, short passes like you mentioned. Notre Dame's going to have to throw the ball in this game to win, and we'll see if they can do it.
Brian, question for you real quick, because I'm kind of drawing a blank.
Mm-hmm.
Riley Leonard has another year of eligibility, right?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Pretty sure he does.
Yeah, he's only a junior, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
True
he
junior?
was only at Duke 2 years. Pretty sure.
Yeah, he's a true junior.
Okay, so let's say he comes into this football game, and this is just hypotheticals, and he still can't throw the ball very well in a national championship football game. But you saw that Angeli really can swing the rock around pretty good. And I know it was a small sample, but he threw the ball on 7 plays better than I saw Riley Leonard throw the ball all season long. Is Notre Dame comfortable with Leonard again next year? Like, I know he got them to a national championship, so it's really hard to go away from that, right? But can you get over the hump when you get to those moments with Riley Leonard?
I think they're going to stick with him just because A, he got him to the championship game, and B, I think you can improve some of the playmakers on the outside that you may or may not have in this offense this season to help him, because he was a pretty decent quarterback passing wise at Duke. He wasn't no slouch. He obviously wasn't the best, but
I think he only had 2 passing touchdowns last year for Duke.
Yeah, he only had 2, but I mean, he had a lot of. I mean, it's not great, but he was throwing a little better than it seems like.
Buddy, that's not good. I think Drew Pine
but he didn't have any
had
players either.
more from Mizzou.
Yeah.
So I did just.
I think they stick with him.
It looks like
I think they do too.
Well, look. So I just looked, and might not even be possible because he actually is a senior. He does lose. He's on his 4th year. This after the playoffs, he'll be done unless because NCAA is considering granting 5 years to all athletes. So if he gets that 5th year, at this point he's probably going to get it because they're probably just going to sure everyone gets 5 years. So hey, maybe I got 2 more left.
Hey, I did think he was a junior too. Actually, I really did.
Was he a true senior or a redshirt?
Yeah, he's a true senior.
Interesting. He must have not played at all his freshman year.
All right, so let me turn this leaf over then and start a new conversation. Can he throw the football? Can he throw the football and improve his draft stock in this football game? That's what he has to do.
Because people were saying he was going to be a first rounder.
No, stop. Who said that?
Hey, I don't remember. I just remember he was a like first, second rounder, like late first.
I think Colin Herzog said that.
No, miss me with that bullshit.
I think it was Colin. It was
not Colin.
Since he was going to win the national championship,
it was a different Colin than I know.
Whoever said that never listen to them on a football take ever again. Unless he's going to go be like Taysom Hill from the Saints. Maybe.
Yeah. The only reason I see him going to the league is if he pulls a Brad Smith and switches to wide receiver.
Because he is I hate just riding his ass in this whole segment.
Watch him come out and throw for like 400.
I hope he does, Brian. I hope he does. I hope
300
he finds it and unleashes it. I hope he does. I mean, goodness gracious.
You shall see. This is a very intriguing matchup, even though it seems like it's going to be one-sided on paper.
Well, to your point, this is one of those where you look at it and you're like, this is going to be an absolute mopping of the floor, and the matchup is not great for the team. And then they come out and it's just an absolute banger of a football game, and somebody has something going for them. So, we exercised all avenues on that football game. We didn't leave any stone unturned.
Mm-mm.
That's a good thing. Just realized I'm off on Monday.
Hey, well, good
That's
thing the
good.
game's not played. Good thing the game's not played at noon anyway, Dave.
Hey, that's true.
Hey, just go to the gas station, get you some Modelo's, chill out, hang out,
Hey,
get
might
after it.
do it. Might have to do it.
Get you some Dos Equis and then sit down and watch the football game and take off Tuesday.
Hey, I'm more of a Modelo guy, but I won't say no to a Dos Equis. So, hey, if any beer sponsor are hearing us, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, you would think AB would pick me up working for him, but hey, whatever. All right, Dave, take us into this book it segment. It ain't gonna be a long one.
Who we taking?
Book it segment. Hey, not that long, not that big this year, but hey, we're 81 and 72 on the season. I did some numbers. I'm not a math guy, but hey, it's about 53%. You can't beat that. I mean, we're 8-2, 8-12 through the playoffs, so that one's been a little rockier. But overall, 81 and 72. Tell me another sports network that's doing that good. I don't think there is one. There might be one or two.
You can write home about that.
Absolutely.
So, right home.
So again, there's not much, there's not a whole lot that we're going to kind of talk about in the book and segment because at the end of the day, we got one game. So Brian, what do we got for the booking segment?
This was we've been up and down this playoffs of picking these games. Honestly, a lot of the times, and some guys that listen to the show and Colin and I know this, that in the sports betting world, you typically try to pick the opposite of what the public's doing. But it seems like in the playoffs this year, the public has won a lot. Not that any of these picks here are big public plays, but it seems to be kind of the opposite of what you typically do in these scenarios. But that being said, we're going to start with the spread. This game started out at 9.5 in Ohio State's favor. It's now down to 8. And we're going to take that right there. We're going to take Ohio State -8 to them cover there in this game, and we're going to book it.
Hey, along with that, in these playoff games, we're taking everything. We're taking spreads. We're taking over-unders. So we're going to have an over-under play for you here, right, too. The over-under currently sitting at 45.5. We are going to buy that hook like we always do here on this lovely network. We are going to buy that hook down, and we are actually going to take the over 45 in this Ohio State Notre Dame national championship. Book it. Hey, I got to be more dramatic about that. This is the last booking of the season.
This is the last one.
Hey, that's the last one.
Hey, we're going to go 2-0. Book that shit. Let's go.
Book that shit, baby. Let's end on a high note and end it on 2-0, Brian. I love that. I think we can wrap it up in the season. What would that be? 83 and 72. That's 11 over. Wow. Hey, that would be fantastic, especially in our first year here as a network doing this together. 83 and 72 would be a hell of a season. Hell, 81 and 73 would be a hell of a season too, but it ain't going to go that direction. 2-0 on the week. I can feel it.
Let's go.
Hey,
let's get together in our text thread here throughout the weekend. Let's find some props we like, and we'll put them out on our Twitter and Facebook. Put some prop bets out there for the people.
That's a good idea. A little extra dessert pieces picks for the
sprinkles in there.
Some sprinkles.
Like let's get a little chocolate chip cookie dessert action. I like that.
Let's find 3 we like. How about that?
Yeah, we'll find 3 we like, and we'll put them out there this weekend actually on our socials. So make sure you're staying tuned. You can find us on X at DT_sports and Facebook at Deep Threat Sports Network. We will drop the prop bets that we are going to take there for you all. Dave, take us home.
Hey, well, truthfully, this is the last one of the regulars of the season. I mean, on Monday, national championship happens and the season has officially ended. We move into the off season. What Brian said it earlier in the season, that's where things get great. That's where you do all your recruiting. That's where players improve. That's where we have a lot of movement going around once the college football playoff ends. But hey, things are sticking with us through a whole season, especially those of you that stuck with us week in, week out, stayed locked in. We're going to keep going next year for the full season. But between now and when fall kicks off, we're still going to be here. We're going to talk transfer portal. We're going to talk everything that's going on in college football, whether Bill Belichick stays at UNC, whether, hey, there's going to be a lot. So there's going to be a lot of movement. Hey,
your boy Deion.
Whether Deion Sanders stays in Colorado, there's just a lot. Whether Carson Beck pans out at Miami, I mean, there's going to be a lot to talk about. And like always, there's always some kind of legal issues in the college football world. Georgia, I'm not talking about you necessarily, but you might be in there. So, like I said, hey, stay tuned in. We're gonna keep bringing quality content, even though the season's coming to an end. We're still gonna work with you throughout the offseason, give you all the information. So when it comes time to the fall, you know exactly who you're pulling for. You know exactly where to put your money, and you're not just out here just wondering who's gonna be the team to win this year. But like I said, stay tuned with us. Colin, Brian, and myself will keep you as well informed as we can with the best stuff. And it might be wrong, but it's going to be our opinion. It is what it is.
Bryant, you got anything you want to add on our football season farewell? But we have no off season here. We don't take an off season, but just the football season farewell.
I appreciate you guys for having me on, and all of our listeners. You know, it's crazy. It's already January. We're talking about the last game of the season. I remember week 1 and 2 talking about, who was going to, be the top 25 this week, et cetera, et cetera. The season went by so fast, but it was a fun one. Very crazy college football season. The new 12 team playoff was intriguing to watch. Felt like it kept more fans and more teams in it longer. So that was very fun. But like Dave mentioned, we got a lot coming here in the off season. Like I said earlier, that's when these teams we're talking about now are built. So everybody stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going off that, I've always had a huge passion for college football, and that's why I wanted to start this thing up. And I love doing it with Bryant and Dave here. But doing this show and really paying attention to every minute detail in every game so we can come back and talk about it has unlocked a whole nother, like love and passion for the game for me. And I'm so glad to do it with Bryant and Dave. This has been so much fun. I felt like we've been spot on for a lot of things, and we've been all over this shit, especially, and you take into account that this is not our full-time jobs where we don't get to sit down for 16 hours a day and study film. I mean, we have real jobs, families, and lives that we're living here and still doing this on the side for fun. Obviously, we're not making no money. We do this because we love it, and we love all of you that have followed along with us. This has been fantastic. I can't express to you guys enough how much I appreciate both of you and how much I appreciate those that have listened to us and followed along with us and are still here grinding with us. And we have a lot of big things coming too. We're going to make some changes to the network. We're going to make some changes to the show, try to continue to improve and get better. I feel like if you go back and watch our first episode as a trio, man, we have came a long way and we are really humming, and a lot more from us. We are going nowhere, and I cannot wait to keep doing this. And we're just going to keep getting better and better, and the looks may change. But man, this is so much fun, and I cannot wait to do it all again and really dive into it this off season. So I appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the fans out there. Don't go anywhere because, like Dave said, we have a ton more coming. With all that being said, for the last exit of the football season, you can follow us on X, Twitter at DT_sports_, Facebook Deep Threat Sports Network, TikTok Deep Threat Sports Network, Instagram Deep Threat Sports with a Z, YouTube Deep Threat Sports, Spotify Deep Threat Sports. That's Bryant. That's Dave. I'm Colin. Fellas, until next time. Peace.